You bring me what did, and then you bring the new body a groovy. Woman time a day, family to a bamo. Never went to Granuma soon. Hope it to pay, what you be a
Today, my guest is a very important personality and man I respect so much. Anyway, my name is Obaapa Afia Boakyewaa, the host of Bawumia and Obaapa Afia. We are conducting this interview in English because this man is learned and history is a little bit. So we're going to be conducting this interview in English. My guest is Dr. Bawumia. Dr. Bawumia, welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Welcome to this show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. For the sake of those who don't know who Dr. Bawumia is, can you please tell us who he is?
I was born in Tamale. I did my primary and secondary school education in Tamale. I'm a trained economist and a banker.
Wow.
And as a person, I like to think that a reasonably simple individual, an individual who cares deeply about other people. I think in life we are all very cognizant that our presence is very fleeting.
Yeah.
So you try to do the best you can with what God has given you for your fellow man and woman, and that is basically in me what defines me as a person. I think I'd like to think that I'm very caring about other people.
Okay. So from the way you're talking, I see you really endowed in, like when it comes to education. So what is the main reason why you decided to be a politician?
Well, I think that you are right. My training, as I've said, was in economics and banking. And I think before we entering politics, my last job was as deputy governor of the Central Bank of Ghana. So I really had very little inkling throughout my career as an economist that I would ever enter politics. My entry into politics came as much as a surprise to me as even to my family and my friends. I think, but when Nana Akufo-Addo asked me in August of 2008 to be his running mate and therefore the vice presidential candidate for the party, I thought it was, initially I didn't believe what I was hearing because I really did not, and so I initially did not agree to it, to go, but I had a very short time to make up my mind.
So it took you like a lot of time to...
Oh no, he needed a decision to be made in 48 hours basically. And so, but I had to think about it. I wasn't going to just jump into, because it was out of the blue. And I thought about it and prayed about it. But fundamentally, I felt that what he wanted to do, given my conversations with him, was really so empowering for the country. I mean, if you look at the vision, when I talked to him, why he wanted me to come and help him, to really transform this country. He wanted me to use my knowledge and background in economics to help him in his knowledge and background in politics, so that we could combine and lead the transformation of this country. For me as an economist, that is very persuasive. I've always thought that if the politicians really understood the economy, things would be much better, because otherwise they are taking decisions which have very major consequences for the economy of this country. And I feel that the economy is where it is. That if you can get the economy right, you can deal with poverty, and you can deal with education, you can deal with healthcare, and so on. So I felt that it was a responsibility that was being put on my shoulders to enter politics, and I felt that there was God's hand in it, because it just didn't make sense to me at that time, and I prayed about it, talked to my family, and I felt that in the interest of, I didn't have to be selfish, in the interest of my country, I should respond to the calling. I saw it as a call to duty, and so I offered myself.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about politics. Considering what is going on here in Ghana, if voted into power, when will the NPP do one national identification data system?
Is one of the most important things. Without it, we're a very, very informal economy.
Okay.
It is very difficult to build a data-driven economy in this world of ICT and the dynamism and that ICT can introduce in an economy. Any economy that doesn't have a formalized system like a national ID card, address systems and so on, cannot really compete. And so we have already said it, and I have made the point that you need the national ID card almost immediately. You remember that the National Identification Authority Act was passed in 2008, and today we're in 2016. And these are cards that can be issued in at most 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
So if you've been there for 8 years and you cannot issue them, there's a real problem. And so we will do it in the very first year, very first budget. It has to be done in the first year of an NPP government.
Okay. Do you have any idea why it's not being done on time?
Well, people have to understand. That's what I say. You have to understand the importance of it. I'm just shocked, quite frankly, that it hasn't been done.
Okay.
And it should have been done. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. It should have been done, it hasn't been done.
Okay.
And I just can't understand it because of its importance to everything that we want to do in terms of a modern economy.
Okay.
You are in the US.
Yes.
Can you imagine that you wake up in the morning, tomorrow morning, and they say all the social security numbers in the US have disappeared?
Oh, it's going to be a real disaster.
That will be chaos. If there are no social security numbers in the US, how do you proceed to do any transaction? So you can see the importance of a national ID card. You know, it allows us to do so many things in the health sector, in the legal side, criminal justice, so many things, financial sector, access to credit. You need to be able to uniquely identify people. Okay. And if you had a national ID card, this problem of the voters register will not exist.
Okay.
Because everybody will be uniquely identified. You will be sitting at home, and when you are 18, your voter's ID card will arrive. You don't even have to do anything. You'll be automatically registered. This is the type of economy we want to build. We want to build a national, a data-driven economy. So the national ID card will also be interlinked with, say, the driver's and motor vehicle department, with immigration, with passport, with insurance, with the police, with the courts, so that the whole data, the economy is linked. And that so that wherever you go, when they put in your national ID card, details will come, and you will have more tax compliance.
Okay.
Because you can tell who has paid and who hasn't paid. And you cannot just go and default on a bank loan and run away, because right now you can't, because you are not uniquely identified. But if you do default on a bank loan where you have a unique ID, if you go to another bank and they say what's your national ID number, they will know you defaulted. So it will bring a bit more discipline. And so we find it extremely, extremely important, and we're going to implement it almost immediately.
Immediately you're voted.
Almost immediately.
Okay, Doctor, I think the Ghana debt is almost at 70% of GDP, right? So what measures does the NPP bring in to avert the situation?
Yeah, I mean, the debt situation is one of the most critical situations facing the Ghanaian economy. You've had an economy where you've increased the debt stock from 9.5 billion Ghana cedis after 51 years of independence, the debt was at 9.5 billion, and today it's over 100 billion.
That's crazy.
So you are talking of a debt stock of about 73% of GDP. That sort of area. That is crippling.
Okay.
It's crippling for the economy because you need today 10.5 billion Ghana cedis this year just to pay the interest on the debt. And if you look at the allocations to all the key ministries, whether you're talking of roads and highways, agriculture, waterworks and housing, trade, and so on. You can take about 8 key ministries and the allocation in the budget is just 2 billion. But the interest payment alone is 10.5 billion. So you see that the debt stock is taking away critical, and the debt stock, the interest on the debt stock is 6 times Ghana's oil revenue. Just to pay interest. So the debt stock has really, compromised the oil discovery and crippled the economy. And a lot of people don't understand that a lot of the problems that we are having today has to do with this massive increase in the debt stock and the burden it is placing on the economy. And because of that, you have to pay very high interest rates because you're borrowing so much. And that impacts businesses. People are borrowing today at 35%. 35%. Mortgage rates are about 30%. It's just really, how can you survive? How can you survive in business or to pay a mortgage of 30-something%? It doesn't make sense. And this is why we in the NPP and the Nana Akufo-Addo are very clear that we must do something about the debt stock. First of all, if you find yourself in a hole, you stop digging, right? So the first thing is to stop this massive and reckless accumulation of the debt. The government that we have currently is just totally besotted with borrowing, and so borrow and tax. That seems to be what is driving the economic management of this country, and it's not a sustainable strategy. And so you will need to reduce your borrowing, but you reduce your borrowing by essentially allowing the private sector to play a greater role in the economy. It's not everything that government should be doing. If you take upon yourself as a government that you have got to do everything, you will have a problem. Your goal is to create the enabling environment that allows the private sector to do a lot. And the private sector doing a lot, whether it's in providing energy or it's in providing roads and so on, if the private sector does more, there's less for the government to do and therefore less for you to borrow to do. And it's not everything that has to be done now. You have to prioritize and cut your coat according to your size. You see what I mean? You don't have to just wish something and suddenly go and borrow money to do it. So we have to manage the affairs of the economy just like any family will manage its affairs. If you go and sort of put yourself on an expenditure path that is unsustainable because you don't have the revenues to sustain it, you will have a problem. The third thing is to grow the economy. The debt stock as a percentage of GDP is burdensome when your GDP is not growing. We've come down in GDP growth from about 15% in 2011 to less than 4%. With oil, right? With oil, we've really gone down, and agric is growing at 0.04%. 0.04% agriculture growth. And agric, where you should really be getting, for this economy, you should be getting a lot of employment from agric. But if it's growing at 0%, then you're not going to move. And manufacturing is growing at -2%. Negative. So if agric is growing at 0, manufacturing is growing at negative, you have a problem. So you need to put in place the incentives, and especially in the tax area, that will grow the economy, that will bring confidence of investment back, that will lower interest rates, and so on. So you have, the makings of an investor-driven economy. That will grow the economy, agric will grow, manufacturing will grow, and so on. So growth of the economy, reducing your borrowing, prioritizing your expenditures, are the key. Reducing interest rates are the key areas that you're going to look at to reduce the burden of debt, and expanding the role of the private sector, as I said earlier. Okay. Those will bring down the debt burden. Yeah, and this is what the NPP is going to do. We are very much, as we keep saying, we are very much a private sector focused. Okay. In terms of strategy, in terms of the party's philosophy, we say we're going to build the most business-friendly and the most people-friendly economy on the face of Africa. Wow. That is the goal. Okay. The most business-friendly economy, the most people-friendly. Because as we build the business side, we have to make sure we also protect the vulnerable in society, as we did before with our national health insurance, school feeding, free maternal care, and those sort of social protections that you give people who are vulnerable. So the business side will grow, and that growth will generate a lot of revenue, and we'll use that to protect the vulnerable. Okay, that is very good. Okay, now let's talk about this doomsday issue. Yeah. I know it's a very big issue in Ghana. It is so what plans do you have to solve the Ghana energy problem once and for all? Yeah, the doomsday issue, I think for your viewers, is the issue of power outages. Okay. And we went through 4 years of power outages with major consequences for industry, for health. Many operations could not take place in hospitals. We were suffering these through the doomsday power outages and so on. It has actually negatively affected the economy. And from our point of view, the government, if you look at what was behind the problem, it's a financial problem, pure and simple. It was a financial problem. The VRA did not have the balance sheets to import crude oil. We owed a lot of money to Nigeria in terms of the gas supply, which is erratic. And so you ended up with the government, contracting on basically sole sourcing basis, Ameripower and Car Power, to try to provide us power. Very, very high cost. As it is today, the doomsday is not over. If you are in Ghana today, you will know it's still on. Yes, and added to that, electricity has become phenomenally expensive. Now this government taxes anything that they think is taxable, so they've put in a 10% energy levy, a 7 CDs, service charge, and for industry a 17.5% VAT. Now that has pushed down its electricity cost very, very high. I'll give you an example. Next door, our neighbor is Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire domestic residents pay 9 cents per kilowatt hour in Cote d'Ivoire. Ghana, we pay 19 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, so then you go for commercial. Commercial users in Cote d'Ivoire pay 13 cents per kilowatt hour. In Ghana, we pay 32 cents. Wow. Now, how do you compete with any firms from Cote d'Ivoire? When your electricity cost is so high, your interest rates are so high, you're going to be dead in the water. Yeah. You're going to be dead in the water. You can't compete. So the government's attempted solution to do so, compounded by the economic mismanagement, has resulted in very high tariffs for our people. And so even when you get the power supply, it's not affordable for most people. Businesses are shutting down and so on. And this penchant of taxing everything has now been brought to the electricity sector, and we're having major problems. You know, and so you need a lot of transparency in the operations of the energy sector if you're going to solve it. You need a lot of private sector investment in the area if you're going to solve the problem. And you need to deal with the debts that are owed to both ECG and VRA.
Okay.
You know, because without the balance sheets of these institutions, which are really in the power generation and distribution business, without those balance sheets being okay, because you know, if they are owed millions of dollars and the government doesn't pay, then you cripple them and so on. So we're going to address the balance sheet issues. We're going to provide, you know, the environment for IPPs to come in. There are a lot of IPPs who are actually waiting to come in, who are actually, even though we're having shortages, are not getting approvals from government. They're not getting approval, even though people are waiting. I've talked to a lot of business people who say we want to come and produce and so on. And we need to put together a framework that is transparent and that is internationally competitive. Because if you go and do these sweetheart deals, that you just pick a sole supplier and say you come and give us power at this cost, you're burdening the taxpayer. You should make it a competitive tender and you will get the best out of it. We will do that, and we're going to deal with the financial side and deal with the transparency side and the competitive side to allow us and the private sector side to allow us to deal fundamentally with the problems of power generation and distribution in this country. There is also an issue of losses, system losses in terms of the supply of power. It's about 30%. 30% of the electricity generated is lost. That's way too high by any standard, and we have to deal with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that means it's going to take a little while.
Yeah. Well, we will. I mean, power issues don't take short, unless of course you deal with the financial side. As I said, the financial side can be quickly dealt with.
Okay.
You see what I mean? In terms of the supply of gas, what you're owing the Nigerians, for example, and the dealings with the debt stock of ECG and VRA, those can be relatively quickly done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My next question is something that bothers me, and I know a lot of people, like people living abroad, about the high import duty.
Yes.
What can be done about it to reduce it? Because you bring one car and you have to pay like a whole lot of money that can even buy 2 cars. So what are you going to do about it?
The high import duty is something that we've been talking about for a while, because in terms of the economics of it, many African countries, and Ghana is no exception, have grown to be reliant on import duty because collection of taxes in the general economy is weak. You know, as we just started with this interview, there's no national ID system.
Yes.
So you cannot really tell who has paid their taxes at the end of the year and that sort of thing and so on. So because of the informal nature of the economy and poor tax collection, it's generally easier for countries to go to the port because that is the easiest place to raise revenue. It's easy to collect and so on. And so you tend to see a lot of countries relying on the tax revenue above 20 to 25% of their tax revenue coming from import duty, which becomes extremely problematic. If you look historically, countries that have really done this in terms of focused a lot on import duty, have had the impact felt negatively on production. You go back to history, go back to America. Alexander Hamilton in the 1780s, the first Secretary of the Treasury, put in place, a tariff policy, but that was to encourage local production. You go back even to the 14th century in England, And it is the same policy. The tariff policy must encourage production. If you go for tariffs or import duties just for revenue, you lose it. And that is the difference that the NPP is going to bring. Our tariff policy is going to be for production, not primarily for revenue.
Okay.
I met a gentleman in New York, Mr. Dusey, who was producing Mama's Choice for food powder in the US. And when he told me he was producing Mama's Choice for food powder, I asked him where in Ghana his factory was. And he laughed. He said he's actually producing it out of New York, that area. And I said, why? Because fufu is, Ghanaian. Why aren't you producing it in Ghana? And he told me about the problems he was having at the ports and the import duty. For something that was being charged at $13,000 in Ghana for a container, he was paying $200 in New York for it. So it made sense for him to set up in New York and employ the people in New York. So NPP, for example, will be eliminating import duty on raw materials for production. Right? That if you're bringing in things that are going to help produce, you eliminate that interest, that import duty. It should be eliminated so that you allow the manufacturers to actually produce, bring the thing in, employ people, produce, make money. Then you tax them when they have made the money. The people they've employed will also pay income taxes. Right? We'll do that. And as I said, we're going to strengthen the domestic tax collection so that you don't have to sort of rely on the national ID and so on. We're also removing all import duty on equipment for manufacturing. So if you're bringing in stuff that is going to help you manufacture goods and services, there should be zero import duty on it. So we are taking a very different approach. We think that expand the economy, grow the jobs, then you can get the revenue. Don't try to get the revenue and kill the jobs. So it's a different approach that we are having, and we think our approach is better. When we reduce taxes during the NPP era, corporate taxes from 32% to 25%, a lot of people thought you're going to lose revenue, but in fact we got more revenue. We got more revenue because businesses expanded and we're more willing to comply. So we will eliminate, and many countries have done it. As I said, the US, Germany, and so on. In the times that they were trying to grow and expand their economies, even today, the average import duty in the US is less than 5%. Less than 5%. In Hong Kong, is close to 0%. So you countries that are interested in production, because raw materials come from everywhere. To produce a good these days, you don't have 100% raw materials coming from your own country. You have to bring in things from somewhere. So high import duties make you uncompetitive, and we want to build a competitive economy. Right. So our sense, as I said, is to relook at the import duty regime, and you will see it in the first budget of the NPP. That we are going to change.
So that will encourage people living in abroad.
Yes, to come in and set up businesses and bring in stuff that they can help produce things in this country. And investors, because investors who come in to also invest in Ghana know that they're going to produce in Ghana. Raw materials that they bring in will not be attracting any import duty. So Ghana will be a more competitive investment destination.
Let's talk about job issues. Creating job for the youth. Because I know a lot of people who have completed their tertiary education and are still home jobless. So what are you going to do to create more jobs for these people in this category?
It's a major issue. In fact, the most important issue, the most important economic issue is unemployment in this country. It's the number one issue and it's the number one focus of an NPP party right now as we go towards the elections. Our number one focus, and it will be our number one focus in government, to deal with the problem of youth unemployment. Because if you look at the data, about 60% of people who are graduating are not finding jobs. That's huge, 60%. And so you see people who have graduated 4 or 5 years and are still sitting at home, because the way the economy is going, if your economy is not growing, you are not creating jobs. It's that simple. If your economy, because growth is about production. So if you are not producing, how can you create the jobs? If agriculture is growing at zero for an economy like Ghana, how are you going to create jobs? If manufacturing is growing at negative, how do you create jobs? So you're going to have to deal with, different elements of the process to deal with the growth. As I said to you, the formalization of the economy is very, very important. This national ID system, has very big implications for job creation.
That's why it was my first question.
Yeah, it's a very big. That's why I asked you. In the US, if your social security number disappeared, there will be chaos. There will be chaos. And you need some predictability in an economy for the economy to grow. You don't want chaos, but for jobs to be created.
Yes.
You see what I mean? That will help a lot, because if credit can be given to people, who can buy things on high purchase or whatever, you are creating jobs. But if the credit system doesn't allow unique identification and addressing and all of that, you will not get people willing to lend to you for high purchase and all of that. So you're going to have to deal with the issue of the address system, the issue of the national ID card, formalize the economy. There is no modern economy that can be a job-creating economy that is not formalized. So this is why we're saying that one of the first things we're going to have to do is to formalize the economy. It's the jobs in there for you. Then you have the whole tax structure we've been talking about. Corporate taxes are too high. We've got to bring corporate taxes down. The withholding taxes that they brought in are again too high. We've got to bring them down. The import duties, as we just talked, have to be significantly reduced and eliminated in some cases to bring a lot more. Business works in a low tax, better in low tax environment. And we're going to, encourage business, empower the private sector by reducing the tax burden on small business as well as corporations. And I think we will get the benefit of higher revenue, actually, as a matter of fact, as the economy expands. So I think that if you look at the tax side, you look at the formalization of the economy side, then you look at bringing down the debt burden, because for businesses to grow and for people to employ people, interest rates have to come down.
Viewers, we're talking to the running mate of the new Patriotic Party, Dr. Bawumia. Okay, Doctor, since we are in the election period, election time is approaching, what message do you have for Ghanaians?
All the stakeholders, from the EC to the incumbent government to all the political parties, should make sure that we have free, fair, credible, transparent elections. And I think elections are not about fighting with each other, it's about exchange of ideas. You bring your idea and your opponents bring the ideas, and the people make a judgment and vote accordingly. And I think we should keep it a civil debate, devoid of personalized insults of people simply because you don't agree with them. But that said, my message to Ghanaians is that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo offers the best chance to move out of the economic quagmire that Ghana currently finds itself. The economy is a scary one for many people. I've described it as a kakamotobi economy, which basically most Ghanaians will understand it's a scary economy. And we need to move away from this kakamotobi economy to an economy that is a prosperous one, an economy that we can have some predictability, and economic management that is not driven by corruption. We need honesty in government, because the people who are suffering in the villages are the people we are stealing the money from. If you steal money in government, those are the people we are stealing the money, the people you should be giving the water to, the toilets to, the electricity to. And you are taking away their livelihoods and their futures, the futures of our children. So it's very, very important that we vote for the NPP and for Nana Akufo-Addo to take the reins of Ghana's presidency and let's move forward as a country.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Bawumia, for granting this interview.
Thank you very much, Obaapa, and thank you to your viewers for listening.
Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you, viewers, for watching this interview. You all heard what Dr. Bawumia said when the NPP is voted into power. So the decision is yours. My name is Obaapa Afia Boakyewaa. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You bring me a day, and then you bring me new betty a groovy. Woman time a day, fama to a bamo. Never went to Cranuma soon. Popito Bay, what you be a me too? Me and my Abujan swag, go in and Muakana can made a Coca-Cola. I just said in the morning, oh, day in Miami, oh, day in Miami.